A young widow sits meditating in a large sunny garden.
A strange but familiar sound wakes her from her trance.
A face stares back at her, despite its lack of eyes.
This is One from the Vaults.
Prepare to slip into the surreal world of the psychedelic 60s.
We hope you enjoy the trip.
Oh, I don't get it.
Hi.
Hi,
And lo, it is us, Rufus.
Warren.
Clint.
Together, we form the currently unincarcerated members of the Cinema Society, unofficial gatekeepers to the lost classics of Anvil Studios.
In each episode, we dissect another of their sacred screenplays.
Or were we to abbreviate, it'd be the SS.
Don't start, Warren. Not today.
And thank you, fellow cinephiles, for once again choosing to tune in.
And thank you for all the electronic correspondence you've been sending us.
Yes, we've had several queries from listeners of the podcast. Garth from Splot asks, why have I never heard of this Anvil Studios before?
A lovely question there from Garth.
Yes, and although we don't wish to cast aspersions on your cultural awareness, Garth, you're clearly a very ignorant film fanatic and human.
Yeah, I imagine, Garth, you're the sort of person who watches films on their phone.
Like a savage.
Well, I hope that answers your question, Garth.
This next one is actually for you, Rufus. What time are you picking me up for bingo on Thursday? And that's from a Doreen_Midgley at AOL.com.
Rufus,
1 o'clock, same as last week.
care to elaborate on that one?
I do not.
And this last question comes all the way from the Republic of Benin, Africa. Our fan Yoname Suragabe asks, please can you be sending £300 to aid me transfer a $4 million inheritance into a secure account?
Needless to say, Yoname, the cheque is in the post.
And good luck from all of us here at the Cinema Society.
So is Doreen your girlfriend?
Can we drop it?
So, this time round, we shall be taking a sidelong glance at Anvil's mind-bending body horror masterpiece from 1963.
A dope-fueled nightmare in modern suburbia.
Keep your ears and mind open as we present The Face
Without
a
a
Face.
Is AOL still a thing?
Madness. It can happen to anyone and anywhere, even here in England. Look at this nice house and this nice young woman.
It's awfully kind of you to take me in. Not at all. We are family now, I suppose.
This is Samantha. Fate has cruelly parted her from the man she married only weeks ago. Now she lives here at the home of her in-laws. This is Dr. Bernard Horsley, pioneering brain surgeon.
The human mind is a mischievous creature. It can play such terrible tricks.
Look, at the window. What is it? I don't see. It was a person, a face, only there was no face. Samantha, whatever do you mean?
The face without a face. What will you do when your own thoughts turn against you?
I'm going to go insane.
No, you're going to have a baby.
They all presumed Scott Devlin died in an accident at sea. So what the cripes is he doing at his sister's house, and without his face? Or is he?
Samantha's mother is not in Quebec. She was never in Quebec. Her mother is in a mental institute.
A mental institute?
A mental institute, a nut house, a loony bin. I don't know the name for them.
I believe you. I saw Uncle Scott too. He's in the garden with his friends. Don't you understand? I'm crazy! Crazy! Don't touch me, I'm crazy!
The face without a face. You have to see it to believe it. Or do you?
By the mid-early to early mid-1960s, Anvil had cemented its reputation for traditional horror movies, with a recurring repertoire of old Gothic tales in fantastical settings.
Until this point, the backdrops of their spookers had been pretty standard fare. A creaking house, a cursed vault, a big old creepy castle.
Especially with the 1961 film, The Big Old Creepy Castle.
But first in a first of many firsts, The Face Without a Face takes place entirely in a present-day Britain, in a contemporary house, free from the trappings of your stock horror tropes.
Gone are the candles, cobwebs and coffins of yore, in favour of electric bulbs, modern art prints and trendy potpourri.
In the second first of many other firsts, the film was shot entirely on location at a trendy new house in remote rural Buckinghamshire, far removed from the wobbly sets of the less trendy studio in West London.
Warren,
Clint,
could you stop saying trendy?
you said it first.
Yes, but if you keep saying trendy, it'll lose all meaning.
Trendy, 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 trendy. Yes, I do see what you mean.
And as a third first of just loads of firsts, this was the debut performance of the pop star singer and fashion model Diarrhea, who was also a first herself.
Trendy. You're right, still nothing.
She was in fact the first celebrity to be known by a single name, predating the likes of Twiggy, Cher and even Madonna. But only just.
Mononyms were revolutionary at this time, as everybody in the film industry had at least two names and often a few in middle.
But there's only one name for Diarrhea.
And in the early 60s, Diarrhea was everywhere. Over billboards, in magazines, and all across your television.
You simply could not walk down the street without finding Diarrhea plastered all over the place.
Hello. Forgive the interruption. Clint here from the future. Not sure what that static noise was, as this is a digital format. Just thought it best to flag this up before we go any further. Now, you may have noticed my fellow cinephiles refer to the star of the film as Diarrhea, which is quite understandable given the spelling of her name. D-Y-A-R-I-A. However, as I was flicking through the channels very late last night, I was somewhere in the dizzying heights of the 800s, when I found a show called When TV Interviews Go Worryingly Askew. And naturally, I had to watch the entire countdown. Lo and behold, number 37 on the list was a chat show from 1968 featuring our funnily named actress. Now, they announced her as Giaria. Giaria. Notice the difference? Giaria, not diarrhea. Unfortunately, at this stage, we had already recorded this entire episode, and though I suggested revision, Rufus had to take Doreen shopping for a new hip, and Warren repeatedly told me that he could not be frigged. So we had to leave the whole thing as is. Hence this disclaimer. When you do hear us refer to the film's leading lady as that, please just translate it in your head as Giaria. Giaria. Got it? Cracking. On you go.
There wasn't a household in Britain who hadn't experienced diarrhea in one form or another, so it made sense for Anvil to have diarrhea featured heavily in their latest picture. And it worked.
People came rushing out the house and all down the road, all thanks to Diarrhea.
Diarrhea slid into the role after much manipulation by her artistic associate, the prominent photographer and improv jazz saxophonist Val Caramel.
Possibly the biggest name in pop art prints and thick rim specs, Val Caramel is synonymous with Britain's 60s subculture and another pioneer of firsts.
According only to the man himself, Mr. Caramel was the first person to wear a peace symbol necklace over the turtleneck jumper.
The first person to make V signs with his 4 fingers and wave them across his eyes when dancing.
The first person to smoke skunk using a diving helmet. The list goes on.
He was also the first person to photograph a tin of Spam, not for advertising purposes, but simply as a work of consumerist art.
Speaking of tins, you're sounding rather tinny yourself, Clint.
Yeah, you're sounding very tinny. Why is that?
That's because you've stuck me in far corner with all the tins.
Very off-putting.
Sorry about that, listeners.
I can't help it.
Silence! As the founder of Anvil Studios, Beverly Anvil was now reaping the benefits of his little film empire, both financial and influential.
After 15 years in the role of movie mogul, Beverly Anvil had gained quite the reputation thanks to his infamous boys-only rap parties.
And due to the turnaround of films produced by his studio, Anvil was hosting at least one of these soirees every week of the year.
These groovy underground shindigs were held very much above ground and often on the film sets of the latest picture to finish shooting.
This meant the gents in attendance would make merry in plywood dungeons, cardboard taverns, and makeshift mad science laboratories.
And due to the exclusivity of these boy-based bashes, only about half the actors and crew would be present, leaving room for other potential guests.
And Beverly extended a soft, tender, and often starchy welcoming hand to the wider cultural community.
Such an invitation was well sought after by the likes of dancers, chancers, poets, painters, writers, thinkers, sculptors, drinkers, composers and posers, actors, mimes, muses and magicians of every class and calibre.
For any lad with an artistic temperament, large wallet, or well-toned physique, this was the place to be. It was hip, and it was happening.
To be invited to one of these jamborees was considered tantamount to penetrating the very innermost sanctum of Anvil itself. Who knew what secrets loitered flirtatiously in those heavy hempen airs?
I don't know. Who?
No, I was being rhetorical.
Oh, I see. So who was it then?
No, Rufus, as in I'm saying, who knew?
Yes, and I'm asking you to tell us.
No, listen. John Baxter, he knew. Oh, he knew all right.
John Baxter, of course.
Right. After selling every piece of his first ever exhibition entitled Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, a series of black and white snaps of people smoking, Val Caramel soon became a regular face at Mr. Anvil's intimate celebrations.
And the rest, as they say, is what we'll discuss after this bit of music.
Welcome back. And my guest this evening, a professional female golfer, Jan Bandana, and artist Val Caramel. And Mr. Caramel, but most people would know you for your photographs. I'm thinking particularly of your naked shoot with Princess Margaret, or your many reprints of that tin of Spam. But you have done so much more in many other mediums.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. I see life as a fruit bowl, and you really must have a nibble of each piece. Yes, I've taken some nice photos, but I've also recorded a 12-hour jazz riff on my saxophone. I've adopted a lemur. I've dumped 18 tons of sand from the Gobi Desert in Trafalgar Square. Why? Who cares? I'm not confined to any single discipline. Do you know what I'm saying, Jan? But that's just me, I suppose.
Yes, and tell me about this film you made. That's certainly a different feather in your cap, if I may be so bold. You call it a psycho-dystopic horror.
Yeah, that's correct, Roger. The face without a face is really an expression of the deep-seated terror that can be found in everyday life. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about there, Jan.
Well, I know I do, Mr. Caramel. And of course you directed this picture with Anvil, who I understand are no strangers to horror cinema. I believe you made it at the behest of the studio head man himself, Beverly Anvil. Now, what's the story there?
Well, Roger, as you know, Bev is such a generous man. He likes to give. He wants to spread himself about, offer a leg up or over to any young aspiring artist like myself. He just gave and gave and gave, and I'm not ashamed to say I took it. We all did. He suggested I expand my horizon. I said, I'm always willing. Next thing you know, I'm signing contracts and holding auditions.
But would I be right in thinking this picture for face or no face?
Yeah, the face without a face.
That's the one. I understand that this was quite the departure for the type of films Anvil was making prior to this.
I wouldn't exactly use the term visionary.
I didn't.
But yes, Bev was on the hunt for something fresh. The whole mummies and ghouls thing really wasn't tickling his fancy the way it had done. Bev was very taken with some of the cinematic triumphs coming off the continent, the likes of Ingrid Zeitgeisten or Mario Chianti, were inspiring him to move in a more transcendental direction. And Bev said he thought I was the man for the job. Would you like some of my water, Jan? You look a little pale.
Hold on, Jan, I'll get round to you. Now, is it true you actually shot a number of the scenes at your own private residence?
The whole thing, Roger. Bev gave us a couple of cameras, some large men to move my furniture about, and we packed off to my new home in Slapton.
Would this be the house you designed yourself entirely from scratch?
It would, Roger. I'd say the architecture was really cutting edge. Not least because there are a lot of edges and all of them are sharp.
And Jan, I see here that you're a Sagittarius.
Yes.
Excellent. Now, tell me about your filming process, Mr. Caramel. According to the actors, you had the whole script shot in the space of a week.
And what a week it was. My crew were efficient, my cameras were sublime, and I had to get the cameras back by Monday.
And the makeup is terribly convincing. Those people look as if they are actually lacking faces. How the devil did you do it?
Artists don't give answers, they get appreciated.
Do you find many people appreciate your art, Mr. Caramel?
Oh, yes. I have quite the following.
Fascinating. Well, that brings us to the end of this evening's show. Thank you to my guests, Val Caramel and Jan... What? Jan Banana. From myself and all of us, good night. God bless.
Once Anvil had acquired the self-confessed visionary as director, he required a film for him to film. Yet the only screenplays to hand were the same old guff that Beverly wanted to get away from.
Titles such as The Evil of the Curse of the Tomb of the Mummy would never do for the likes of experimental potato printer Val Caramel.
And so, Mr. Anvil turned to the studio's resident consultant, Malcolm Gordon, to uncover a new script. And Mr. Gordon proved himself invaluable once again by providing one such work.
Valuable.
Hey?
Valuable. He proved himself valuable. Invaluable means of no value. Honestly, Warren.
I thought...
You thought wrong.
Clint?
I couldn't care less.
Oh.
But it is invaluable.
Oh.
It transpired that Malcolm Gordon received a steady stream of unsolicited scripts from aspiring screenwriters in his capacity as consultant, and the face without a face was reportedly recovered from down back of his bureau.
And, due to heavy smudging on the front page as a result of some wayward bacon grease, the name of the author was totally indiscernible.
Making it an even more valuable proposition for Anvil Studios.
The official procedure for an unknown writer was to retain their fee, provide a pseudonym, and rename the film just to be on the safe side.
The original title was, in fact, Out of Her Bloody Mind, which never sat well with producers to begin with, hence its disposal down back of the bureau.
So it was swiftly rechristened and the writing credited to Clive Seascuff.
Who isn't a real person, am I right?
No, like I said, it's a pseudonym.
Ah, so she's the real writer.
Who is?
Pseudonym.
Oh, I think it's awful how these women get written out of history.
No, the original writer is a mystery.
Wait, so it was a bloke?
Eh?
Yes, Rufus, but we still don't know what the E stands for.
Ah.
What?
Whoever Mr. E was, his script won over the budding filmmaker, and Val Caramel began preparing his first ever film, starting with the coercion of his favourite photographic subject.
That's right. Diarrhea was about to make a big splash on the silver screen.
Janice, are you there?
I'm in the kitchen, Samantha. Come and find me.
I thought we could go for a walk this afternoon. Janice, where's your face? Or are you pointing at the knife drawer? You want me to look inside? I'll take that nod as a yes.
Ah, Samantha, you found me. You're it.
Oh, it was only a dream. Thank goodness.
Lunchtime!
Oh, good. I am rather hungry. Eating for two now.
Samantha, hurry! We're having soup. Delicious soup.
That's wonderful, Patty. What kind of soup is it?
Why, face soup, of course.
Oh, phew. Ouch, you're restless in there, aren't you? Ow! What's going on? Stop it, little one, you're hurting me. No, it's not possible. My face!
And what do you know? We've got another first.
Yes, not only was this the first mainstream movie to feature a protagonist waking from a dream, only to discover they were still in a nightmare. This happened an astonishing 17 times.
Taking up over a third of the film's runtime.
And is a cinematic record yet to be broken.
The only reason we have this footage is because the sequence was used by Professor Vladik Volantis in experiments of psychologic endurance throughout the late 1960s at the Institute of Gaga Gugu Kachu in Crewe.
Like many English historical sites, it's now a Morrison's car park.
Whilst the dream sequence tested the limits of audience sanity, the film's colour palette simply baffled viewers, veering wildly between Technicolor and monochrome throughout, even between shots within the same scene.
And though cinephiles have spent decades trying to decode the significance or meaning behind these shifts, it was simply down to the mismatched pair of cameras Anvil provided for filming.
A prime example of the futility in trying to find purpose in our own existence.
Right.
Val Caramel did not seem to notice this camera discrepancy or even care.
The week-long shoot was described as a truly hedonistic kerfuffle by veteran stage actor Arnold Gooch, who was playing the role of Dr. Bernard Horsley.
Gooch's exact words in Stage Actors Digest were, "They were all off their nut on scaz, dibbled on dobblers and hopped up on crackle."
Whilst the film itself was destroyed in the Anvil blaze 5 years later, Mr. Caramel published a collection of photographs he took during production.
Here we have stills from a variety of scenes throughout the movie. Diarrhea on the sofa, diarrhea on the carpet, diarrhea on every kitchen surface.
Val Caramel clearly had a passion for diarrhea.
There are a handful of pictures showing off the impressive prosthetics of the faceless people who feature increasingly throughout the film's plot.
Here we see the faceless mob slowly encroaching on the house via the garden.
Upon closer inspection, we found one of the faceless gang does in fact have a face.
It is none other than the film's consultant, Malcolm Gordon.
Meaning he'd been present throughout the hallucinogen-induced shoot at Caramel's remote rural retreat. But why?
Was he simply on hand to assist the first-time director?
Did he volunteer as background extra, but forgot he still had a face?
Or was he also an avid lover of diarrhea?
The short and predictable answer is, we don't rightly know.
Although Val Caramel never made another movie, the legacy of Face Without a Face gave rise to him as an artist of cult status.
Within a year of the film's release, devoted fans of Caramel took to wearing makeshift masks as seen in his horror flick and naming themselves the Faceless.
Val soon found himself as the leader of an army of anonymous art lovers.
Fueled by the wisdom of their appointed shaman and copious mushrooms, the Faceless became an unruly force on the streets of Camden Town.
Rebels against conformity and capitalism, the Faceless smashed shop windows and sent death threats to anyone who criticised Val Caramel.
Well, it was a right to do, to say the least.
But the artist formerly known as Val gladly stepped into the shoes of Prophet.
Which ironically meant going barefoot.
He also grew a beard, wore a poncho, and stopped bathing.
Which only made his followers more ardent and everyone else more miffed.
It all unravelled for Caramel in 1968 when he was shot in a nightclub by a former Faceless member, a Miss Bryony Smelting, who had recently escaped from the very poorly secured institute of Gaga Goo Goo Kachoo in Crewe.
When firing the gun, Bryony reportedly screamed, "'Tis the will of the Malgor."
Whatever the frig that means.
Although the wound was not fatal, Val Caramel decided it was best to retire from being a leader to a cult of hippies banged up on loopy shoes.
To avoid his followers, Val hid from society by living in Rill, which some would argue is a fate possibly worse than death.
And thus, the sorry ordeal was at an end.
Wonderful to have you on the show, Diaria. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
I thought so. Diaria, you joined me here this evening live to discuss your illustrious career as a model, an actress, an icon. But first, I wish to give my condolences. I understand your chum, Val Caramel, is in hospital as we speak.
Well, Roger, I'd not say chum. I haven't spoken to Val in some time.
Though you were the subject of Caramel's greatest photographs.
I wouldn't exactly use the term exquisite beauty.
I didn't. You also featured in his picture Face Within a Face.
The face without a face.
Of course. You became something of a film star.
Ah, yes. If I may be brutally honest, Roger, I have absolutely no memory of making that movie. Isn't that awful? I've never even seen it.
Gosh, is that so?
Well, it was all done so quickly. I'd spent a week at Val's house many times before, and his shoots often got sort of out of control. Next thing you know, I'm starring in this silly little horror film.
You really don't remember the production at all?
Now you mention it, there's something rather odd. I have these dreams.
Gosh, is that so?
Always the same thing. I'm lying on grass. There are people stood around me. in a circle. They don't have faces. There's this sound like nothing you've ever heard before, and the pale man appears, grinning. His eyes are purple.
Gosh, is that so?
I realize that I'm entirely naked, and the man unsheathes his monstrous...
Oh, Christ! Is that... Oh, gosh! No, please remain calm. The stage light has just landed on Diarrhea. Oh, her head is... Oh, I'm gonna be sick.
Gosh, I can't believe that diarrhea being splattered all over that TV studio only reached number 37, and when TV interviews go worryingly askew.
And so we reach the end of another chapter in our Anvil anthology.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to leave a review on the...
Is that you?
We said no phones.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I've really got to take... Hang on. Hello? Yeah, hi, Dope, yeah. Yeah, no, listen, I'm actually just in the middle of... What? Pardon? Yes. Yeah, I'm picking you up at 1 o'clock. Yeah. Yes, the same as last week. Okay? Okay. All right. Bye then. Bye, Buttercup.
Care to elaborate?
I do not.
Come back next week as we begin a two-part descent into the devilish underworld of arguably the most famous of Anvil horror franchises.
Join us in exploring the saga of the infamous Dr. Murder.
Until then, we have been Rufus, Clint, and Warren, and this has been One from
the Vault.
Vaults.
Bye-bye, Buttercups.
Go give over.
One from the Vaults is a co-production between the Cinema Society and Medium Rare Productions. It was written and performed by Joel Heritage, Jacob Lovick and Jack Robertson, with additional performances by Madeline Dunn, Charlie Ives, Ben Lydon, Donovan Mike and Hannah Sharp, and edited by Jacob Lovick. The music is by Cyclone Marlowe. It is based on an original idea created with Chaz Redhead. You can follow us on @Cinema Society on Twitter, email us on cinemasociety@gmail.com, and remember, cinema is always spelt with an S.